Tingles. Welcome back, fellow tinglers. Alright, so today we have a spooky, creepy, scary kind of video. As you've read in the title, I will be reading some creepy, or however I title it, probably spooky stories. I got this idea from Moonlight Tingles. She's another ASMR creator. I'll link her stuff in the description. I would like to give credit where credit is due. She did a few days ago. Reading subscriber scary stories, and I wrote a scary experience that happened to me, and she read it, and I was like, that would be pretty cool to like do some scary story readings, and then eventually when we get bigger, maybe I might do the same thing. Give her credit there too. But for today, I have a few scary stories from the Huff Post. It says 12 terrifying ghost stories you shouldn't read alone. I'm very much alone, but I have you guys, so we should be good. So the first one is called The Cell Phone. Okay, here we go. This one's pretty short. It says, a couple months ago, my friend's cousin, brackets, a single mother, bought a cell phone. After a long day of work, she came home, placed her phone on the counter, and went to watch TV. Her son came to her and asked if he could play with her new phone. She told him not to call anyone or mess with the text messages, and he agreed. Around 11:20, she was drowsy, so she decided to tuck her son into bed and also go to sleep. She walked to his room and saw that he wasn't there. She then ran over to her room and found him sleeping on her bed with the phone in his hand. Relieved, she picked her phone back up from his hand to inspect it. Browsing through it, she noticed only minor changes such as a new background, banner, etc. But then she opened her saved pictures. She began deleting the pictures he had taken until one new picture remained. When she first saw it, she was in disbelief. It was her son sleeping on her bed, but the picture was taken by someone else above him. And oh God. And it showed the left half of an elderly woman's face. And that's all. Okay. This one's pretty long. Ooh, yeah, this one's like a few paragraphs. This one is called Ghost Bro. Alright. Sorry if that was loud, I apologize. My house was built in 1904. It is a single family home, wood frame, setting on a concrete block foundation. I've been living here for about 12 years. Of all the weird things that my siblings and me have seen or heard in this house, this one is my favorite. This happened to my brother. About 10 years ago, my brother and his best friend had started a garage band playing mostly Spanish rock. Alternative music, but in Spanish. His friends could only get together on Sunday afternoons. They would practice in the early evening, and they would usually call it quits about 8 p.m. This was the time I showed up and went to bed, because I worked the graveyard shift. This happened in late fall, so the days were getting shorter, and they had just finished a long session when the decision to head to someone else's house came about. My brother handed his car keys to his buddy so they could load up the equipment. Everyone had filed out the basement, but the tricky part was that they needed to walk all the way back to the back of the basement, up back the stairs, through the kitchen doorway, down the hall, into the living room, and out to the front porch. Everyone was outside sitting in my brother's truck waiting for him. My brother was walking up back the stairs when he remembered that he had left his pancakes in a to-go container sitting on the speaker in the basement. Pancakes, man, seriously. He made the decision to go back. The basement isn't clean. With full sight lines, there had to be partitions made, and the boiler and the main heating unit are right smack in the middle. So after my brother walks back, he is about to retrieve his food container when, out the corner of his eye, he sees it. It is a shadowy figure. Right at his peripheral vision, this feeling of dread and uneasiness washes over my brother. He had been taught that if you are in the presence of a spirit or ghost and you felt a bad vibe, to say a quick prayer or cuss at it. My brother chose the latter. He basically just told it to, hey, F you. They actually said it, but I don't have time for this S. My brother started to walk back to the basement and briskly up the stairs, closing the door and turning the lights off as he was walking out. The last light switch is the one opposite side of the front door. Luckily, the door was open and the light from the street lamp was flooding in the living room with its amber light. My brother said he felt something at his back, but at no point did he turn around. As he flicked the last light switch from the living room, the living room went dark, as did the rest of the house. As he stepped and pulled on the door, closing it behind him, still holding his food container in one hand, he jogged down the few porch steps. He walked toward the front gate. Our house resides far from the main street, essentially having a large front yard but no rear garage. As he closed the gap between himself and his friend-laden truck, I don't know what that means, he kind of smiled and thought over his head, mad at himself for spooking out when there was no reason. He climbed into the driver's side of the truck, putting on his seatbelt and getting ready to pull out of the parking spot directly in front of the house, when one of his friends asked, "Hey, wait, what about your brother? Isn't he coming with us?" My brother answered, "What do you mean? He went to work early tonight. He is already gone. Do you see his car anywhere?" The next question they asked, "So then who was walking behind you when you were leaving the house?" Oh my god, they literally gave me freaking chills. Okay. Ooh. Like, I think I'm joking. Honestly, like, as I was reading it, like, I got, like, goosebumps. It's kind of weird. Alright. The next one is called The Rocking Horse. And I'm going to try to read them a little bit more slow and somber, because I'm just kind of rushed through it, but I'm going to power through and read it more with more emphasis. Try to make it a little bit more spooky. Okay. One night, when I was maybe 10, 12, I had trouble falling asleep. My bedroom was the entire top floor of our house, with my bed and such being on the left side and the storage closets and the play area being on the right. I was lying in bed when I heard a noise from the other side of the room, and I see a rocking horse begin to rock. It was just sitting outside of one of the storage closet doors. It proceeded to rock its way halfway across the room and stopped dead under the ceiling light. At this point, I was freaking out and I just buried my head under the blankets and never peeked out again until morning. It was all confirmed to not be a dream, as the rocking horse was still in the middle of my room when I woke up. Furthermore, I got a stern reprimand from my parents for being up out of the bed playing with my toys well past my bedtime. The bedroom was well directly below the storage closet / play area, and it heard the creaking and rocking horse shuffling across the room. And it didn't think to come upstairs. Okay, that was a short one. It wasn't really that bad. This one I'm about to read is called The Following. My older sister has a ghost that followed her around for years. I lived with her once for about 3 months, and so much weird stuff happened in that time. All my sister would say to me when I mentioned it was that it was her ghost, that her ghost didn't like me being there. Things like going to bed with every locked up and switched off. Locked up and switched off, and waking up in the morning with the back door open, lights on, and the kettle switched on. One night, my sister and I were getting ready to go out, and I asked her to borrow her liquid foundation. Oh, this is definitely a girl. I used it, liquid foundation. I used it and put it back where she kept her makeup. 10 minutes later, she's asking me for it, and it was nowhere to be seen. She accused me of taking it and made me buy her a new one, and refused to listen to my side of the story. About a year or so later, when she was packing to move to our new house, she found the makeup in a shoebox with some old letters. The shoebox was in a zipped up suitcase that was underneath her bed. But probably most scared I've ever felt was one afternoon when I was the only one in the house, which never happened as 4 other people lived there. I'd arrived home and worked and headed straight for the bathroom. All the doors, windows, etc. were closed. I was standing in the the bathroom and started squeezing a pimple on my chin when a female voice in the hall said, "Stop picking your zits." It was loud enough and sounded real enough, and at the time I thought it was my sister, so I laughed and told her to F off. There's a lot of cursing about that. And I asked what she was doing for dinner. No answer. I stuck my head out into the hall. No one there. I searched the house top and bottom, and there was no one home. I sat out on the front porch until someone else got home because I didn't want to be in there alone. That one wasn't too bad. Wasn't too scary. Okay, this next one is pretty short. Yeah. It says Annie96 is typing. This is much more of an interactive experience than anything else on the list. Oh wait, ain't nobody doing that, guys. We're gonna skip this one. They're trying to get me. Oh, definitely not. That was a link to a WhatsApp conversation, and I would have to read it, and I'm definitely not doing that. So we're gonna go to the next one, and coincidentally, the next one is called The Whispers, which is what I'm doing right now. Should I whisper the story? No, I'm gonna do it. This is a story I don't tell often. I promise sincerely that it has scared me for life. And although I've looked into psychological explanations for what I heard and natural explanations for what occurred, they remain unsatisfactory. When I was a child, I was scared of the dark. I swore to my mother I heard voices in it. They were not evil, but they were not familiar, and so they scared me. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. Wait, what? Hold on, let me redo that. It was not uncommon in the middle of the night for me to wake up and hear whispers, as I would call them when asking my mom. Okay. She figured that they were just bumps in the night and typical kid nightmare material. I tried often to explain to her that it was more than that they sounded different from one another, the way people's voices do. On some nights I would get so scared from these whispers that I would sleep in my mom's bed with her. It was an added bonus that the bathroom was directly outside of her bedroom door for my late night tinkles. I should add at this point, when I was walking into the hall to go to the bathroom, you look directly down the stairs that would lead you into the living room and on the first floor, as my mom's bedroom was on the second floor. On one such night around Christmas, I awoke and felt the need to relieve myself. What is that noise? Okay, I'm not going out. Nope. I walked out from the door and distinctly heard the phrase "look." And to my astonishment, a red light, almost like a spotlight, was cast upon the wall at the very bottom of the stairs. The light had no other source. It was by itself, and I was transfixed by it. Oh my God. Being a little kid, and it only being a few days from Christmas, I knew what this light was. It was Santa. How else could he get into my house to know I was being a good boy? I was so excited I began walking down the stairs to greet him, picking up my pace after the second step as it began to creep off the wall and fade into the darkness of my living room. That's when I heard him, a very strong masculine voice, different from the first, not at all like my father's. Not to say he isn't masculine, it was just distinctly different. It said, "Stop, right now, go back up those stairs." I listened, turned around, and what happened next, I am not sure I would believe it if someone had told me the same story. After reaching the top of the stairs, I heard a very loud crash that sent me running back to my mother's bed, where I jumped straight under the covers and stayed there the whole night. When we awoke the next morning, the poinsettia lights, little Christmas flower lights that glowed red, those are in parentheses, my mother had put on the railing down the stairs, were pulled straight down to the bottom of the stairs, some broken from what seemed like a forceful tear, laying in a single pile. The dry sink in my living room had fallen off the wall. My mother could not explain it. My father was worried we had been victims of an home invasion. My sister was crying. There was nothing missing, nobody had broken in. There did not seem to be any reason that this had happened. And then I saw it and kept quiet about it because I was so afraid I could not force words out of my mouth. There, on the edge, oh my god, I don't know, I'm getting scared. I'm reading it, but I'm getting scared. I'm gonna keep all this into. There, on the edge of the wooden dry sink, which had been facing up, were three indentations where the finish of the wood had been worn, almost as if in a forceful grip. Something down there had grabbed it and threw it down. That was the bang. That's what the bang was. I was mortified. After that day, I never heard a single voice again. I do not like to imagine what was waiting downstairs for me that night, if it was anything at all. But I can tell you that the reality was something had physically acted upon two things in my house near the bottom of that stairwell. After this, I had never heard another whisper again, which is sad because in some ways I would have liked to thank that man, parentheses, masculine energy, that had stopped me from going down the stairs. This happened when I was 7. I am 20 years old now, and because of this incident, I am still afraid of the dark, especially shadowy stairwells. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Alright, this one is called The Crib Shadow. I was babysitting my niece once while I was staying at her brother's place, and they had the baby camera set up so I could see her on the little TV it came with. I was studying and started dozing off when I heard some whispering and realized it was coming from the monitor. I initially thought it was some feedback or something, but when I looked at the TV, there was a dark shadow near my niece's crib. I have never been more terrified in my life, but the shadow was clearly there where it had not been before. I ran to my niece's room and looked around and saw nothing. But I took her the hell out of there. I went back to the TV and the shadow was clearly gone. I told my brother what happened, and he pulled me aside and told me not to mention it to my sister-in-law because she'll freak out, but that he had seen the same thing several times now, with that same whispering. They stayed in that house for about 4 more years when my niece was just learning to talk, and she would tell her mom about a special friend. To this day, it scares the S out of me. When they moved out, my brother told me my niece had become inconsolably sad because she would miss her friend. Her mom would tell her she could bring him along, but all she would say was that he couldn't leave the house. We never to this day told her about that D shadow, and apparently she never saw it. That wasn't too bad. Okay, guys, I'm gonna end it right there. I don't want it to be extremely long, but if you like it, there's a lot more stories like these in there. I haven't even finished all of them. So actually, let's do it right now while y'all see me recording. I have bookmarked it, so I can always come back to it. You guys let me know if you enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. Even though it scared me, I still have fun like doing things like that, like playing scary games, reading scary stuff, watching scary movies. Even though I'm like a big pussy cat for those kind of things. But I'll see you on the next one. Much love from Tucker Tingles. Subscribe, like, share, all that. Peace out.